where you have to be in the peloton.
From this high up, you can see what sort of pace they're dealing with at the moment, and it's a quick one. And if you do get disengaged from the back, it takes an awful lot to get back on, and it's not a happy place to be, as I think that's De Vries is starting to find out right now. Get yourself back in, get ready for more hurt, and there's plenty more to come. Back in a moment. A hazard amongst themselves, so they need to approach this in a sort of a sinuous fashion if they're going to get through safely. So let's keep our fingers crossed, shall we? Well, the race is going to seem very familiar to you after the Valkenburg, but you've got to get to it first. The break is just about to crest it. It is smooth. That's Jiregi just being helped out with a swift change. And there'll be a change of pace as well by the pack as they try and approach. That's Uhle gets back and underway. Obviously, the Canadian is the favoured rider, and he's off and underway with some work to make up, because there's going to be a bit of pace ahead as they try and approach the Valkenburg. Incidentally, Longo Borghini is about, we believe, to win the women's race. She had a gap of 58 seconds with 6 kilometres to go. 5 chasers on her case to try and deny the Italian former champion victory today. So Longo Borghini looks like she's going to win. Meanwhile, Neda Brekel, they come in, they take this right-hand turn, and it's Sky in big policing duty today. They don't want any more problems. They've had a few earlier on. Bradley Wiggins got bitten. Get up front, give yourself a decent view and some options on the entree into the Valkenburg. And Andre Greipel is one of those on policing duties, and Giant also just starting to show their hand today, thinking about Degenkolb, of course. Wow, lot to play for, Sean, and the road's about to kick up for these guys.
Yes, it's about to start, and you can see just the nervousness is building in the peloton here on the front end. You know, there's a lot of movement and a lot of teams trying to keep in a good position, and we are at that point now. It is 7 kilometres to go. When you look at us, what is coming up on this on the route, it's normal that everybody is starting to get a little bit concerned, and nervousness is starting to kick in.
Certainly is. The crowds are expectantly awaiting the women's race to finish at the finish line. Sorry that we're not going to be able to bring you any of those pictures until later on. It's not being provided to us, I'm afraid. So a bit of magic spanner time, a bit of real spanner time, I think, for Orica Greenedge. Just having to adjust themselves as they start to think about the end of the day. Or was it MTN Quebec? I didn't quite catch it, to be honest. And I'm busy looking down the road to bring you the ladies' race as they are on the Valkenburg, and they're taking it gently, Sean.
Yes, again, sometimes that is the case, and I think with the breakaway out front at just over 3.5 minutes, nobody wanted to commit at this point, and we often see that where they just wait and wait, and if that is the case, well, then we could see a lot of riders getting to the final. Again, we're seeing this slow down where riders are, just having to put the foot down and wait until they move on again.
There we are, a quick change, couple of punctures, as you've seen, been announced. What about Orica Greenedge today? They've got Jens Kirkelaar, we were talking about last year, a year older, a year wiser, perhaps?
Well, I think they have riders there who are capable of doing something, but they need to get out a bit further out in the race. If they wait for the very final, the Oude Quaremont and the Patersberg, well then, the big hitters are going to go so fast. I don't think they've got riders capable of that. But the way the race is at the moment, there is going to be teams now who will say, yes, if we get to the 60 kilometres to go, Mark, well then we're going to try and go in the attack and send riders up the road. And the way it's rolling at the moment, I think we will see a lot of that.
They're going to go up the Keparai as well, which is 9%, 5.5, 9% maximum, 5.5% average, but it looks nice and relaxed for the time being. I think everyone's quite happy with the way this day is panning out. The longer it stays like this, Sean, without punishment being meted out to some of the quick guys, it plays into their hands, does it not?
Well, I think it plays into the hands of the riders who have maybe difficulty in the final. The big sprinters, Christoph maybe, we must remember he was in the 3 days of the Pan, so I would be concerned that he might pay a little bit dear for that in the final 30 kilometres. But if the race is not as aggressive and not as fast as it normally would be, well, then he's going to be that bit better in the final. Sagan as well, maybe not at his best form. So the sprinters, the faster ones, will be happy with this pace, and they will want to follow and try and get to the end, because if they get to the end with a group of 8 or 10 riders, they're always in a great chance. A Sagan, a Christoph, a Degenkolb.
Well, the ladies' race is just drawing to a close, and I'm kind of hanging outside of our commentary position to give you the heads up on it. But Longo Borghini has taken it, and she crosses the line, arms aloft. Wiggle Honda have delivered, and the clock does count. There were 5 chasers, incidentally, at the 6K marker. Congratulations to her, and I'm just sorry you can't see the pictures. I think it's an amazing performance, and she's a great rider, and good delivery as well for Wiggle Honda. They are a fantastic team, and just waiting for the rest of them to come across the line, but the gap is significant, and I think cat and mouse for second place quite clearly. I don't think they tried as hard as perhaps we thought to catch her in the last 6K, certainly, but it's a wearing race of its own in its own right. Don't forget, 144 kilometres with plenty of pavé along the way as well, and it's Wiggle Honda 1-2 today. Oh, they're going to be absolutely delighted. Jolien D'Or has just come across the line. Great team, great result for them, the 1-2, Sean, for the ladies race, which has just finished.
Well, to get a 1-2 in a major classic for the team, what a performance, and yeah, they will certainly be over the moon with that performance. Wiggle Honda, they have been they're knocking at the door. They haven't been winning the big ones. They've been winning a lot of races, but to win a Tour of Flanders, that is one of the best races of the season that you can win.
Rocky Gilmore will be absolutely delighted. It's a great team. In fact, last year Sean was invited on board the team bus to give him some tips about how to race, and they've clearly kept those gems, those pearls of wisdom, where they need to be. To the forefront of their minds. They've delivered a 1-2. Congratulations to them. Longo Borghini first, ahead of Jolien D'Or for Wiggle Honda, winning the Women's Tour of Flanders today. Congratulations to them. Back to the men's race then, 84.9 kilometres, 3 minutes and 17, and a little bit of conversation going on at the moment. There's been a bit of shooting the breeze. It's not been the most dramatic just yet. Mind you, I'm sure that Jesse Sargent and Trek Factory Racing will probably disagree with that. We've got bumped. He's got a collarbone problem, I'm afraid. It's sure to kick off soon. We'll take a break. Welcome back. John Degenkolb has just got himself a change. Compact character that he is. He's tasted success, of course, and Milan San Remo. What a phenomenal result for John. Well, he's in the monument hunt then, which is great, and I suspect certainly one of our favourites for today, especially if the pace stays as it is right now. He likes a high cadence, does our John. Takes on a moderately sticky bottle, slingshots himself on the collect. We'll just welcome everybody back. John Degenkolb just getting himself back in. As long as the pace stays as it is, reasonably benign, it's going to play into his sort of hands. So expect the pace to be changed by teams who want to work for strongmen and potential breakers. They need to break the demeanour of the quick men. Let's catch up with what's been happening today with Declan.
Welcome to the big stories of the afternoon. The first big crash of the day, and it was Sir Bradley Wiggins that went down on that left-hander, touched with his left wrist. We haven't seen him too prominently towards the front of the bunch. He did get a bike change, got back in his bike, got a bike change off the current prototype K8S, which he just discarded nonchalantly to the side. Picked up one of the older models, the F8, and then changed a little bit later. But this is the big story of the afternoon. This is what's dominating all the conversation on Twitter. An absolute outrage at the driving behaviour there. Jesse Sargent in the early breakaway, and we understand that he's been taken away to hospital, and the official tweeting response from Trek Factory racing indicates that he has a broken collarbone. So massive disappointment for Jesse Sargent. That's put paid to his racing for a little while, it would appear. And no doubt there'll be further comment on that after the race and beyond for a couple of days. As I say, that's dominating all the Twitter chat. Hashtag Home of Cycling at DQ Sport for myself, at Carlton Kirby, as we see Sky Pro Cycling on the front of the group. We've already had the completion of the Women's Tour of Flanders this afternoon. Sensational race, 145 kilometres in total, 10 Hellingen for the women to traverse. And the victory going to Elisa Longo Borghini. She soloed in almost a minute advantage over her teammate Jolien Dahour, and Anna van der Breggen getting up for third for Rabo Liv. So 1-2 for Wiggle Honda. Superb performance for that team, and a breakthrough victory for Elisa Longo Borghini. She has taken victory in Trofeo Binda last year, third in the World Championships in the past, but that's a really, really big win, a really serious addition to the 23-year-old's Palmares.
Thank you, Declan. Thanks to all of you who've been tweeting in, and a lot of you I know a little bit upset, more than a little upset, and I join you in that we didn't see pictures of the women's race finish. I did indeed ask on site if we could have them, but our local providers told us that it would be too confusing. I'm chuckling, but actually it's I'm shaking my head at the same time. I would have loved to have seen it, especially a Wiggle 1-2, which is it's a fantastic team, as Sean was pointing out. Meanwhile, back to the men's race, and you will incidentally be able to see highlights of the women's Tour of Flanders on Eurosport later in the week, I understand. So check your schedules for that. I don't have it to hand as to the time, but I'm sure Declan will fill us in a little bit later on. Just under 80 kilometres to go. It's going to get busy from now on in. It seems, Sean, that it's sort of skipped along really, and all of a sudden it's the one race where 80 k's to go, you really feel like you're getting to the end. It's bizarre.
Yes, well, it's a long race, and we've been on air for a long time already, and you know, it goes on, and we can see now that we're still, you know, just under the 80 kilometres to the finish. Sky are taking control on the front of the peloton, and the problem is when the weather is good, the race sometimes is not as active as you would expect it to be. If you had a lot of side winds, well then the race will open up automatically. But here, if you really up the pace and start making it difficult very early in those conditions, well then you pay the price later with your team.
We have the Canary Berg. I guess it's something to do with canaries. A lot of mining in this part of the world, and they did use the birds, of course. This is the Caparai that we're dealing with right now. This is 5.5% with a max of 9, and they're going to get fed fairly soon as well. And then we will, of course, have the Canary Berg. I'm sure it's bigger than a canary. Well, it's actually a kilometre in length, incidentally. 7.7%, and maxes out at 14. Now, the point about the Canary Berg is it's kind of been built in the course to be a big regathering where everyone can kind of come together and then sort out their strategy. Even amongst the breakaway riders here, they've got other fish to fry, it seems, and I think they're getting fed up with passengers. And I think those, like Lars Bak, who we know is got something on board, both he and Damien Godin maybe thinking about a duo, not again, and that's Team Car. That is the Francis Lejeur's own team car, and there's a big valance off the back of the car which has actually been disengaged on the impact. I can't believe it, Sean. What on earth is going on today?
Well, we could see that the Francis Lejeur rider had a problem, and Marc Madio not happy at all, and not surprising. We could see another team car smashes into the back of him, and we can see the damage.
Well, I suspect that the valance has actually shot out and collected the rider. So there's been an impact. The rear bumper has actually come disengaged and collected their own rider. Maybe even worse than that. But right now, I'm in a state of complete shock, Sean.
Well, that is the Tour of Flanders. It's just hectic out there. As we can see it again, it was a team car.
There it is.
Shimano, a neutral car.
It's the neutral car again.
My God.
Well,
and the rider, it looked like that the mechanic was just about to get out. The rider got hit by the open door, but not looking too bad, not looking too injured, but still he's still sitting on the pavement.
well, I guess the only saving grace is that that car's out of this race. If it's the same driver, which I understand had been taken off.
No neutral cars left.
My goodness. Well, they've hardly been neutral today, have they? They've been rather active, unfortunately, in exactly the wrong manner. Sorry if we're sounding like we're shouting from a pulpit, but honestly, I really want to break something. They've been damaging our sport, for goodness sake. 77.2 kilometres to go, 2 minutes and 34. Let's try and calm ourselves down and get on with this. But wounded riders for no good reason, Sean.
Well, yeah, you know, the riders themselves in the peloton there, they take so much risk when they're up front, and you know, when they're really in action and really racing aggressively. But yeah, the cars. But it's always a risk. I've seen it in the past, you know, where somebody is not concentrating fully, and certainly that was the case there. You could see the rider, you know, he had his hand up, he was to the right hand side of the road, so the neutral service car should have seen that the Flanders Ew car was about to stop, but you know, a little moment of hesitation and then job done.
Wow. Well, let's just gather ourselves, shall we, and try and refocus on this. We're talking about the wrong things today, Sean. That's the problem.
Well, yes, unfortunately, you know, for the riders, the car situation, we could see Marc Madieu there, you know, not at all happy, and not surprising, because you know, his car is totally wrecked, and his rider on the ground, and you know, it's as I said, something the drivers, you know, in the cavalcade behind the peloton or behind the breakaway, you know, they should have the experience not to get into a situation and that not to happen.
76.7 kilometres of, let's hope, just racing, shall we? That would be nice, wouldn't it? For goodness sake. 2 minutes 28 is what we've got. And we've also got a diminishing breakaway right now. This is now a chasing group. Oh, goodness me. I'm just trying to gather myself and just hope that we can get some news even on the car, for goodness sake. What about Marc Madieu and his team car? How's he going to marshal his own troops, for goodness sake? So, chasing group sets off in hot pursuit, and it's Michael Morkov is here, pretty handy for Tinkoff Saxo. This is turning out to be a solid roll of the dice here. Is that Lurbacher? Also, likewise, no, it's not. It's Spacebrook is also here, and Docker as well. This is reasonably handy, Sean.
Yes, it's a group of riders that, you know, they've decided to try and get out of the peloton here, and we're coming to that point now with the riders and the teams. They know that an opportunity, the way it's been set up back in the peloton, if you can get out, form another group and go at this point, you might be able to pull out a nice advantage and get into the more serious part, the most difficult part of the race with an advantage on the peloton, and then you're up there when the racing comes up from behind.
And it's coming up from behind right now. Sky are in marshalling duty, as you can see. 6 of them. Haven't seen much of Bradley Wiggins, I must admit. Up towards the front. Don't mistake the beard. Meanwhile, Europcar have sent a pilot up the road to try and join the Lotto Soudal rider, who's trying as well to just latch on to this chasing group. Everybody with an option. And soon you're going to run out of them, because there's going to be a call. Little tap to say, hi, come on, let's do this. I love the camaraderie between riders, the way they just sort of come up to each other. Earlier on today, by the way, there was a Alexander Kristoff, I think it was. Oh no, it was Paolini, incidentally. Somebody came up and did one of those really nasty little whip slaps on his backside. It sort of shocked him a bit, and then he realised he was one of his mates from another team, so all was okay. But I think for a few moments anyway, he looked like he was thinking of violence. Just over 75 kilometres to go. Sean, there's going to be a lot of fresh legs out there, which means that the racing onto the Hellingen is going to be quite brutal. It's going to be pacey. There's going to be a lot of people who believe that they've got an interest today. Just look at how many riders we have locked into this pack of talent.
Yes, well, we can see here, perfect picture. Still a lot of riders, 140 maybe riders still in the peloton here, and with 75 kilometers to go, that is the case. The weather conditions, hasn't been at all difficult out there. Very little wind, dry conditions, and when you get that, well, then there's a lot of riders go a long ways into this race, and there will be a lot of riders as we go further to the finish.
They're starting to bridge over and try and form themselves into an effective fighting force. Meanwhile, the police force is just behind it. It's still Sky that are they burning themselves, Sean, or is the pace today not been overly arduous, even for those who are on the front?
Well, I think, when you're on the front for as long as Sky have been there, they've been up there for a long time now already, and, you're going to lose some of your riders because of that, and it's all, you have to look at the other teams as well, the bigger teams like Evetics, like Lotto, Sodal, all of those riders and teams are keeping as many riders as possible, and you could get into a situation where you could find yourself, with not enough riders in that final 30-40 kilometres.
Well, here we are. It's the men from the original breakaway who've decided just to push on a little bit. Lars Bak, 35 years of age now, took a stage on the Giro in the past. He's just looking at Godin, also, I suppose, just nudging towards veteran stage. He's 28 years of age now. He took a stage on the Paris-Nice, finished 5th overall, in fact, a couple of years ago in 2013. So Godin's had his glory days and can go well. He was busy in Japan back as well. You may remember if you were watching that live on Eurosport as well. Hashtag your home of cycling. And finished 6th in the GC. So he's on great form for a 35-year-old. There are other veterans in the pack. Stein de Volder as well. I'd love to see how he goes today, but I think he would have preferred rougher conditions. I'm sort of rebooting myself, Sean, in terms of who I think might be up towards the front. A lot can change. There's plenty of stories still to be told, but for the time being, it's going to be the quick men who are going to have their fun the way this is going for now.
Well, you would expect that at the moment, but again, with over 70 kilometers racing to go, if they race very, very fast in the final 60 kilometers, for example, well, then it becomes very difficult. And if you real fast racing on the cobble climbs, on the non-cobble sections, well, we could see the group splitting, but they have to race at such a fast rate, and who's going to do that? That is the big question. What team is really going to take it up and try and blow this big peloton to pieces with the conditions we have today? Very difficult one to see that happening.
Hugely difficult. Then again, it's hard to tell any story. We're on this. It's hard to know how the chapters will be written, as it were, of the story of this year's particular race. Well, here we are, and one man missing from this. Oh no, there he is. He's back in. Bradley's with us. Sir Brad is on board. Everyone be pleased. He had a rough start to the day. I guess it's calming down just a little bit. It's taken his time to get himself back towards his teammates. I suspect he may well have brought up some bottles. Meanwhile, here we are. These are the men who've disengaged from the breakaway group. You can see the security car up front. Cars have had a bit too much influence today. We're on the Canary Berg, and after the Canary, it flattens out quite a while, and I guess if the wind had been blowing, it would have been a significant part of the day, or more significant than it's likely to be. Anyone's guess. This max is at 14%, by the way. It's 1,000 meters, so 1k, but at least mostly smooth, as you can see, apart from the fact that somebody went and they just paved it, and then somebody went and dug in a cable or something like that on the right hand side of the road and rather spoilt it somehow. 3 minutes and 3. They've just got to grind this one out, Sean.
Yes, well, they are starting to grind, as we can see here. The two strong men we've got in front, Damien Godin and Lars Bak, two real strong riders, but still they are starting to suffer now. And when you look at the peloton, the pace they're going, it's the peloton who's deciding who, how long and who's going to stay out front here. For these two, it's all up to the front of the peloton. When they want to, when they decide to turn it up, this advantage of 3 minutes will just come down so quickly, because they have been out there for a long time and they are starting to tire majorly.
Well, I guess in that regard, it's probably a good time to have a bit of a break from all of the tests, either climbing or cobbled sections. In fact, the next one doesn't come until we get to the Eau de Clermont for the second time of asking out of the 3 visits. We'll be doing that and the Paterberg, so it's going to be a bit pacey. All of a sudden, I think there's going to be an increase in the cadence as the roads get smoother and we start to head for, it's about 25 kilometers or so they've got of reasonably flat and predictable landscape. There we are. One thing you can't predict is the style of the onesie. Looks like he made it out of curtains. Congratulations. Hardly Bowery, but anyway. 70.7 kilometers. Bless it. 3 minutes is the gap, and look at the pace, Sean. They know they want to get over the Canary Berg and then probably put in a bit of hurt while they possibly can. It'll be a return to as near normal as you can get within the Tour of Flanders in terms of terrain. Not too many of the obstacles for them to take on for the next 26 or so once they've all dealt with the Canary Berg.
Yes, and it's the opportunity to the riders who feel that if they would just wait in peloton, then when the race really starts to open up, they're not going to be able to follow the real strong, powerful riders and the big favourites. And we can see for that reason a number of riders, a number of teams wanting to get out of the peloton, but it's not happening for them. As we can see, Sky are still setting quite a fast pace, and nobody being giving any major advantage to get away and pull an advantage sufficient to get into any position where you could go a long ways into this final.
Despite the fact we're going to allow you to rip up your predictions, have you changed today in your view? This morning you said Degenkolb was, or last night you said Degenkolb. You still stick with that view today?
Yes, well, I think when you look at the list of riders capable of winning today in the conditions we have got, Degenkolb, of course, if you had maybe more wet, windy conditions, he would survive maybe a bit better, but he's still a good rider and he can, you know, hang on in there, and if he gets to the finish with a group, he's always a real danger one.
Greipel, the question mark with him has always been about the distance. Right now, I believe he's sacrificing himself. There have been questions asked as to how he manages once you get over the 200 mark. Well, I guess on a brighter day, he might have had his fun, but he's on duty, I'm afraid. And this is about roughing everybody up and maybe just being part of the action out front. If this comes together and then pushes on, there will be 3 Lotto riders up the road. Lars Bak, who's nosed off right at the very front, one of the chasers, and of course Andre Greipel as well. That's a handy little formation. You've got a couple of teammates as well as yourself. Same deal for all of them. And a few checks over shoulders. I don't think they believe that this can make it just for the time being, but it's showing intent, and it's mixing it up, Sean, with just under 70 to go now.
Yes, well, we can see again Ulrike Greenedge, it's Michelle Ducker here pushing on, and a number of riders trying to come across, and it's the point of the race where you have to try and do something. If you're not sure that you can last the real hectic racing in the end, try and get out of the peloton at this point. And this group is, you know, becoming a nice group now. If they can start working together, they could maybe, you know, get an advantage and get, you know, a minute and a half. And if they do manage to pull that out, well, then they could go a long ways in the more difficult, before we get to the more difficult parts.
The danger has been spotted at an Essex Quick-Step, a centre man up the road. They don't want to be caught napping, and I guess if Lotto Soudal are starting to form themselves a bit of a breakaway party, a marauding party, you might say, of 3 riders, then you need to mark that down. And right now, on the chase, one of the Ethics boys is actually just trying to bridge over, and in so doing, he's got company. I'm not surprised. It's a game of chess at the moment, Sean. Yes,
well, I think it's all happening out there on the front of the peloton, and Ethics Quick-Step, they can see that, you know, there's a number of riders, you know, starting to peel off the front of the peloton, so they want to get into the action as well. They don't want to be in a position where they're going to have to, you know, start riding later on, and that was always the question: what way would Quick-Step, or Ethics Quick-Step, let's call it, what tactic would work this in this race, because they have been, you know, using the team, riding a lot, but not getting the results that they would like. So seems to be a little bit of a change of tactic if they're going to fire a man into this breakaway.
Change of tactics, change of pace, and this is a little regrouping of the breakaway riders, save for, of course, the two are up the road, Godin and back. This is getting fascinating. They just don't want to lose out, and I'm not surprised. Likewise, Orica Greenedge are getting themselves into position. Good to see Astana as well showing some willing right now. They've got their quick men, they've also got their strong man. Bozic is one of those. Lars Bohm is also here. At the back, Adam Blythe, I believe just stopped for a puncture a few moments ago. He's got himself back in. This is the Orica team with Jens Kerkelaer. Now, he went well in the 3 days of West Flanders, of course. He's 22 years of age now, 9th in the E3. He beat Os there, and Bozic, incidentally, the aforementioned a few moments ago from Astana in the pale blue, Slovak. So, yes, Jens Kerkelaer, watch out for him. I wonder if he's got something today, but this is slowly but surely coming the way of the likes of Orica Greenedge. They've got other fish to fry right now. Turbo Durbo, would he be sent out on a fact-finding mission for these guys? He can time trial like a good, and he's also got some real strength, so Orica could feature, you know, it's not beyond the writ of man. So, your favourites coming in, Stein de Volder for Trek Factory Racing, along with perhaps Jesper Stuyven, but they've got to think about their strategy. From distance, Nicky Terpstra for Ethics Quick Step. They've got Denix Debar as well. We've just seen the Czech champion a few moments ago. Matteo Trentin and Stein van der Berg, who's strong, but his suspect sprint, and it may well be faster legs that get there. We've got Jens Debecher, of course, the Belgian champion, will always want to honour the tricolour. Gold, coal and blood. Somebody unwisely described the flag once. It was me. A lot of criticism, but I just thought it sounded great. Jürgen Rollens and Taija Benut as well can also go quick. Lars Bohm Bozic for Astana. Can't really see, could be proven wrong, of course, by 82 à la Mondiale. And we've got another issue. I'm hearing screaming. Marcus Burkhardt.
Be careful of the car.
Yeah, there we are. Watch out. The blue car is the danger car.
That's what everybody's screaming at here in the commentary.
Is that what
it was? Be careful of the car.
Is that what it was? Oh, do you know what? We're laughing, but in fact, we're just dismayed. Marcus Burkhardt, Greg Van Avermaet, Sylvain Diller, Jean-Pierre Drucker, Daniel Oss. What a team BMC have brought to the party. And they've even got Cadel Evans helping out, not only with strategy, but also carrying spare wheels past some of the pavé sections, which are rapidly approaching right now. Likewise are the peloton. They're in heartbreaking mode at the moment, and it's Team Sky who they've got. Plenty. Wiggins, Eisel, Viviani, if it's quick, Christian Nace, of course, Luke Rowe, Silva Puccio. We've got Ian Stannard and Geraint Thomas, who started off as one of the pre-race favourites. If it is going to be for the strongman, Katusha with Christoph, Luca Paolini as well. John Degenkolb, who's already done the job on the Milan-San Remo. He's here. Dylan Van Baal and Jack Bauer for Team Cannondale Garmin. Orica Greenedge, Jens Kerkelaer, the aforementioned. Movistar with options clearly feel they have. Pippo Pozzato for Lampre Marisa. Chavanello de Vence from IM Cycling. Arnaud Demer, why not? The French champion with Chavanel as backup. Indeed, the other Chavanel, I should say. There is, of course, our friend French champion, or ex-Chavanel, is also in the mix here. Cyril Lemoine, Gerald Cholek from MTN Quebecer. He's a quick man who can function well, but it's maybe just not grizzly enough for him. If you want to be savaged by a bear, what about Peter Sagan, Maddie Breschel, likewise for Tinkoff Saxo. The list is huge here. Oscar Gatto's in the frame for Androni Giocattoli. Sepp van Mark, why not? One of the out-and-out favourites for Lotto Jumbo in the yellow and black. Ted Turns, Yellow Valais for Topsport Vlad, and don't count them out. Vincent Jerome from Europcar in their green, and Loikemans and Mercato from Wanty Group Gobert. I'm sure I've forgotten some people, not least Luca Paolini, of course, who went so brilliantly in the Ghent-Wevelgem. He'll be back up for Christoph, but might well be giving his head out there. I don't think I've forgotten anybody, Sean, but I'm sure I most certainly have. It's impossible to pick a winner because we don't know how the strategy is going to pan out. But I'll tell you something, we're going to find out right now on these approaches.
Yes, well, I think we can see now that it's really starting to race rapidly now, and that group out front, which was quite a big group, and a lot of teams represented, and a lot of very good riders. You know, we had Lobato there, we had Selvaggi from Wanty, we had Greipel, we had Dillier from BMC, we had a Lothar rider, we had Turo from Bora, Martinez from Europcar, Van Keerspoel from Ethics. So they're all, you know, they're all just putting men into that group going away, but unfortunately it's not happened because with the pace being set by Sky, their keepers under control. As we can see, another problem.
Oh, a puncture, and this time on an air bridge. They're just going to get underneath while it descends. They can't quite get the compressor to work quick enough, and there's going to be a safe way through this. They're holding it up, but it's gradually, slowly deflating like a bad party. Goodness me, what next, Sean?
For the team cars is going to be a problem. As we can see, it's just going down slowly. So with the bikes, they have to get it, you know, down and actually drive over it.
Basically, they've got to pop it, destroy it, or unhinge it from one side and drag it across the road to get it clear. My goodness. And the motorcycle cameraman almost had his head taken off. Likewise, this lot. Duck, everybody! What next? This is madness today. Oh. Like being hit by a soggy baguette. With that, thankfully they are past it, but we are on a loop, for goodness sake. I don't think we repeat this road on this approach, but nonetheless, don't hold your breath. They'll deal with that when they possibly can. Oh, wow. Whatever next, let's take a moment, shall we? Declan, your thoughts? It must be exploding on Twitter at the moment.
Yeah, Twitter has expired pretty much. When it does return, it's hashtag home of cycling. I'm expecting to see lots of chat about exploding balloons and things like that, barrage balloons, etc., to annex Shimano team cars. That's one suggestion that's come in already. Needless to say, the Shimano team car issue has been dominating affairs. Wacky races from Alison Ludlam. Mr. Discara says wacky races among the supports. Dan Hall comparing them to Dodgems. And well done to West Country Lad, the first man coming in with the suggestion that this could be Jeremy Clarkson's new employment. First one to get that. Julie Watts has to get a mention for having the best name on Twitter. So new to cycling, how do teams work together? Maybe you guys get a chance to explain that. And Caroline Allison is a driving instructor who's been offering her assistance to the drivers. And plenty of tweets coming in from Trent Factory Racing as well. Equipe Française de Jeu, no doubt, no surprise they're active. And Sebastian Chavanel has left the race, but is okay. Big fright in the car, but everyone's okay too. Some more info after the race, and that is the answer to that mystery. It was Sebastian Chavanel who was the rider who was caught up in that unfortunate accident. I think the two, you know, for what it's worth, we should, you know, it's Shimano cars involved in both of those incidents. The first one, well, you know, you really shouldn't be crashing into cyclists when you're behind the brake. When it's behind the cavalcade, which is behind the main bunch, and there's lots going on narrow roads, well, there's plenty of opportunity for those accidents, and it's probably worth mentioning that, you know, isn't it amazing that it doesn't happen more often than it does happen. So just under 60 kilometers to go, and it has certainly all kicked off. Mark Jeremy says, when is Roland's going to go? You know it's going to happen, and that early activity from Andre Greipel suggests that Lotto Soudal very eager and very keen to get going early today.
The men in red are mustering themselves, and it's a rag to a bull at the moment. And look at this. This is a race for a pinch point, and there's going to be plenty of these. 57.9 kilometers to go. A lot of you expressing your views on all the elements of today, of which there have been many. I put a cross by Sebastian Chavanel earlier on today, not because I thought that Sebastian would do it, but just so I didn't mention him in error. Instead of Sylvain Chavanel for I Am Cycling, and it seems that the cross probably had an impact. He is cross, he's out of the race, although I think more depressed than anything else. We understand he doesn't have an injury, which is a blessing. Back and Godin up the road. It's all starting to kick off behind them because we're in to the hurt zone here. So, Eau de Clermont is beckoning. We'll be on it when the breakaway hit 54.6 kilometers, 4% maximum, 11.6%. Sorry, is the maximum, 4% is the average. 1,500 meters of cobbles, we remind you. Sky have their special bike with suspension at the back, but look how narrow it is on the approaches to this. We're taking the Clermont for the second time of asking, first time over the Paterberg, and that maxes at 20.3%, and you might see a lot of riders stepping off. Steve, our fans there showing the Czech flag. Will the Czech champion have his fun? It's not about fun, it's about coping this and maybe imposing yourself. It can be a nightmare. For somebody, it's going to be a fairy tale. For that person, the name at least, we do not know their identity for the time being. Good to see Derbyshire, the Belgian champion, up towards the front, right in the pointy end for Lotto. In fact, he's lead man for them right now, and BMC are on the blower. How do you want us to play it? They've knocked it back, they're taking it sensibly, Sean.
Well, it's often the case, a race to the pinch point, as you mentioned, Carlton, and that's what happened there. We could see to get onto the Eau de Clermont, the lead into the narrow road, a big up in pace, and then suddenly it slows down, and that's what's happening on front. We can see a lot of talk going on. We can see the BMC riders, you know, radioing back to car, what is the position, what do we do, and here we go on attack, and Alfredo from Flanders Ew is going to throw in one, because you have to do something here. If you're not going to be capable of doing something to final, this is the moment now with just under 60 kilometers to go.
Alfredo peels off and drags two others along with him. BMC send a satellite rider. Ethics Quickstep are thinking about doing exactly the same. Derbyshire is also here, and he's going to be a danger. You think danger from 56 kilometers out? Absolutely. It begs attacking mode, and that's what they're entering into right now. They'll form little alliances along the way, and then they'll rip them up if they happen to find themselves in a happy position late on. It's still not big enough, but this escape group, and we've still got this brace of riders up front. We remind you that's Lars Bach and Damien Godin from the original breakaway, and they're already back on the Eau de Clermont. This hurts this time by, and these guys don't have the luxury of a suspension system on the back of their bike, unlike Team Sky, who've been happily coping today, being out front, and I suggest the bike design may well have helped them in that regard, Sean.
Well, for the moment we have to wait off for a moment, wait off for a while, let's say, because it's early days yet. There's a lot of riders in the peloton, and yeah, it's all to race for, it's all to happen yet.
We're on this little testy, nasty, spiteful loop. They'll be back right here, don't forget, in about, what, 30 or so kilometers time. At 38 kilometers time, they'll be back at this very point with, what, 16 Ks to go. And so we just checked back to see who else is joining the front, and Lampre wanted interest at the pointy end, and the pink and blue is getting engaged, and Orica never too far away from having a say. BMC want personnel up there, and in fact that's Degenkolb right towards the front as well. He's in a sensible place, but surely this is far too far. He wants to stay close to Derbyshire, that's my mind. I think he just is minded not to let this just go away from it. It's like having a wet lead just being pulled out of your hands, albeit on a dry day today. And Sky also with G thinking about it. There is G, there is Degenkolb. Some big names on the shake-up here, Sean.
Yes, well, we're seeing a lot of the big favourites to start to appear on the front of the main peloton, and you know, a little bit of a gap here up to the Boucher and Alfredo and a number of other riders, but it seems to be all coming back together. It's Team Orica. Heyman is actually you know, coming across there, but all the big favourites, or most of the big favourites, to the front of these at this time.
Starting to rock and roll, and Christoph is also just showing his demeanour today. And it's one for action, as you know, over the last. There is MTN Quebec a little bit too far down the order for the time being, with Cholek just coming through the picture. 43 seconds now. Debyshire, a big roll of the dice for him early on. Who's being tempted to follow on? Well, John Degenkolb was minded to just engage a little bit of acceleration and leave his teammates behind. So it is the strong, quick men who are starting to come to the fore. And maybe this is going to nullify those who would have been perhaps hopeful of being in a breakaway. We'll see how it shells out. So, Sean, we've got the Clermont, we've got the Paterberg. We're going to see all this again. It's going to be déjà vu all over again. That joke phrase, it'll be no laughing matter later on, will it? This is the serious end of the day.
Yes, it is getting to the serious part of the racing. With 55 kilometres to go, you know, everybody is concentrating now on, you know, what's happening at this moment and what's coming up, and it all depends on how you're feeling. If you're feeling good here, it's still a long ways out for the big favourites to, you know, try and push on here. But if you're feeling good, well then, you know, that is a great for the morale. But if you're starting to struggle and you're you know, hanging to stay in there, well then you start asking yourself questions.
Jens Debusschere with the Belgian tricolour. Not suggesting it's about him today, but it's certainly a great place to be up the road. Lars Bak and Godin are up here. So Debusschere has got a man to bridge over to. That's Lars Bak in that little duo up front. And look at the way it's just starting to settle itself down. Terpstra is not going to hang around. I saw Stibar a little bit earlier on as well, just thinking about getting himself into a decent position. You don't want to overprotect yourself at a moment such as this. And Paolini's come away from his traditional place further down the order. Just spotted Stibar, by the way, in the main body of it. But Debusschere is a powerful man to have up the road. A very, very useful man to bridge over to if he's your team.
Yes, well, it's always good to have a teammate up the road, and Debusschere, he knows that opportunity there to get out of the peloton, because we've seen him in the past in the semi-classics. He's there, but he's not, you know, just good enough to match the big riders, the big favourites in this race, and a good move by him.
Groups split and spat all over the road at the moment. As you can see, there's our duo up front, and it's a long view. It's also a painful one. If they dare look back, they're going to feel aggrieved. Only 39 seconds is what they've got. It's all kicking off behind. Out of the saddle, Lampert, Debusschere and Kimolai, and there's others bridging over, and Degenkolb is aware and wise to the problem, and he's within that little group that have just distanced the main pack. Actually, it's a piece of elastic that still has stretch but hasn't actually snapped for the time being. It's catch-up time, and Stein de Volder's out of the saddle and just on this little drag up right now. You can't describe it as more than that, but it's certainly sapping. And Geraint Thomas never that far away from the pointy end. His team have done a great job of getting him into position. Now he's actually ready and feeling capable of doing this alone now, Sean.
Well, I think you know, it's certainly all to play for. The race, you know, it's all to happen yet. It's all about who has got the best form at this time. Still with over 50 kilometres, a long ways to go. So yeah, you know, you have to hold off for quite a bit more. But if you're feeling good, well then you follow. You watch the other big favourites. You don't allow them to get any advantage on you, and wait for the moment and you know, work. You have a tactic, and you can be sure Sky, Geraint Thomas, they know when they have to really push on. Geraint Thomas not good in the sprint, so you have to always, you know, consider that he has to try and go it alone or go a bit further out.
2 kilometres, that's what we've got until we're on the Paterberg. It's 20.3% for goodness sake. It's cobbles, it's nasty. It's part of this race because it hurts, and it's at a crucial point, Sean, very late on. There's very little time to recover before you're into more climbs, and then we come back in a loop and we go and do it all again. Eau de Clermont and Paterberg still to be done. The Paterberg, for the first time of asking, is coming up right now. They'll have to hit it once again at speed. It's the last of our Hellingen, incidentally, with 13.2 for the line, but they're going to do it for the first time. They'll peak out at 51.2, so it's coming. They know it, and that's why it's busy.
Yes, well, the Paterberg is a one which it's a real important part of the route today. The 52 kilometres to go. The steepness of the climb is always a danger, because there's riders maybe not able to make it if they get a little bit of problems, maybe a gear change not working right, and then you cannot get moving again. So you have to go to the Paterberg and try and be in a real good position in the top, you know, 5 or 6 of that group you're in.
These guys look like they're on a Sunday afternoon. I've got a feeling that Lars Bak is being called back at the moment. too far for him to go alone. He could be very, very useful. Here's the turn. They give themselves a good view of it. Easy to get into, tough to master.
Well, for the two out front, we could see there they were just taking a little bit of recovery time before they got onto the paddle belt to be able to get up it, because these guys are really starting to suffer now. But back in the peloton, the front of the peloton, they will come around this right-hander at such a rate we could actually see problems.
Well, easy for a duo to get into. It's going to be anything but for these guys, and that's why alarm bells are raging right now. I think it's Sylvain Chavanel that's hit the front. Paolini just goes by, shoots by. Christoph within the body of the pack here. Cholek's also involved here. This is fantastic. Stibar is also here. Oh, it's all opening up. It's going to get very, very busy. There's not much space to actually introduce yourself, and as soon as you are here, it's a whole world of hurt, and suddenly it's Go Down that decides that he's going to press the go button. Who else is going to be minded to join him here, Jean?
Well, I think the front end of the peloton now is really going to push on up here, because there is a big fight for position back there on the front of the peloton. We can see Godin struggling to get up it, as we can see back as well, and the advantage they had 30 plus seconds there, a couple of 100 meters ago, and now it's just melted down totally. Well, as we can, Chavanel is just leading a little bit off the front of the peloton.
Yes, he is. It's the sort of distance that he's not afraid of going from, and with the punchy terrain that we've got, it draws out attacks. This was not supposed to be a peaceful lead-in, anything but. It's been built for a crescendo, and the cobbles are just about to finish right now, at least on this section. Plenty more of this still to come. In fact, this very, very part of the course will be dealt with as Chavanel just tempos himself in. Degenkolb is not that far away either. There is Peter Sagan. He just nudges almost into the cameras as he takes that turn and gets on with it. Wow, what a race we've got, and it's almost just starting now, Sean.
Yes, well, it's really starting to heat up, and we can see the amount of riders we still have got there, and not any major gaps here. Continuous slow riders, and unless they can keep going, race very, very fast up front, there will be a lot of riders will make it back in and will form a very, very big group with 50 kilometers to go. And that's the consequences of the weather conditions today. As we mentioned, as I forecasted, we could have a lot of riders in the final.
It might be a huge bunch at the end. It might be something completely different. If you write a script on this one, you'll be tearing it up for sure. With 50 kilometers to go, we're going to take ourselves a break, and then we're going to be back. The Kvermont and the Paterberg have been dealt with. We're going to do it all again. In the meantime, we've got 3 other climbs before we get there. Welcome back. 48.6 kilometers remaining, and we have plenty more climbs still to come. Sean, not as focused the next 3 climbs, but still with an impact, and any of them could prove to be a launching pad, I assume. We'll just wait till we're all back as a family on Eurosport before we engage Sean in this one. Right now, as you can see though, Andre Greipel is up towards the fore. He is working for others today, but I guess the more he puts in right now, the bigger the advantage is going to be taken by other quick men such as him. Tiki Degenkolb. Sean, pace still here. It's absolutely relentless. There are 3 other climbs. Any one could be a springboard, couldn't they?
Yes, well, the Koppenberg is the next one, which is a real serious one as well. A little bit, further on down the road here, but we can see, a lot of looking about, and who is going to continue pushing on, securing the pace. And we can see groups also. We can see Bradley Wiggins in a smaller group just off the rear of this one.
So let's find out about the big test, which is coming up right now.
It's a very hard climb because you get the Kvaremont, Paterberg. From the Paterberg, small narrow descent down, a little bit 1k 200 meters, a little bit more bigger road, then left again, really narrow road again, and you're already almost 2 minutes from the bottom of the Koppenberg. So the hardest part about the Koppenberg is the fact that you have no recuperation in front of it. So you already arrive like this, and then the Koppenberg is just a beast. You arrive, I don't know, it's like 17% the steepest part, and it's long as well. So it's really a killer.
It is a killer. This is the one we were talking about at the top of the show, where you can actually come to an absolute standstill. It's 22%, but maximum gradient over the full reach of 600 meters of cobbles, we remind you, is 11.6. Many famous pictures have been taken here. Riders usually look absolutely the end of their tether. Today, we've got a sense of freshness about the pack due to the weather conditions, but nonetheless, it's very important to take this well and not get trapped, Sean, and you can be.
Yes, well, very important that you get your position right going onto the Koppenberg because of the gradient, and you know, we can see a very big group still here, and more riders coming back in. We can see that group of Bradley Wiggins joining up with the main part of the peloton, but you have got to be in the front here, and as we heard there from Bonin, you know, it's a very steep one. Normally it'd be much more aggressive at this point. We can see here there's a big slowdown in the peloton, very much grouped together, so that will give a bit of recovery time, but you can be guaranteed when they get close to the Koppenberg there will be a big sprint to get to the bottom of it.
Oh yes, and it comes in about 2K's time, so there's going to be a bit of a drag race right now. I think it possibly suits just about... Oh look, you had to reach out and go. Well, if you're going to choose a man, why not this man? Andre Greipel. He's big in terms of explosivity. With 46.2 kilometers to go, he's already done well over 200 kilometers. Who said that he didn't have, that his tank is usually empty beyond the 200? Well, I'm probably guilty of that myself. But the weather today has allowed some of the quicker men, some of the very quick, strong men, such as Greipel, to have their fun. And he's having a joke with us right now. I don't think it's going to be about him. I think this is part of the team softening up of everybody else. But he's going to be in a very safe place by the time he gets to this hellish Helligan of the Koppenberg.
Yes, well, it's the best place to be out in front because Greipel, you know, he'd not be the best to get up these real steep ones because you can see, you know, a big, powerful, heavy guy. If you can get onto it with a couple of 100 meters of advantage, that's, you know, a great position to be in, and that is his tactic. Get over the Koppenberg, and then if there's a battle between the, you know, the bigger riders, well, then he's already out in front.
You've been caught out on this one, Sean, and had to dismount and push or carry.
Yes, well, I've been many of the time I have had to walk it. It's a one, if you arrive and when it's wet, there's only maybe 6 or 8 riders who manage to make it because somebody slow up and then they start losing traction and down you go. And I had that problem a number of times, not getting into the right position. But today it will be very dry, so I expect a lot more riders to be able to make it on their bikes.
Andre Greipel has got the honour of taking it ahead of this lot, and you can see the speed that they are manoeuvring into. They're getting into sensible order though, about 2 wide to make the turn and onto it. But Andre Greipel wants to carry as much momentum as he can into the climb. Even just psychologically, that can be a bonus.
Well, it's always an advantage when you can, you know, make your own way up the climb. You can, you know, pick your line. When you're in a big group, it's not going to be the case, and we will see a lot of, you know, chopping and changing from the riders. But also, you must remember, you have to make that effort. And Greipel, he was, you know, in a good position where it was a big slowdown, but back in peloton is starting to push on again. Will he have enough of an advantage to make it over the Koppenberg?
Stein de Volder is up towards the pointy end. So we've got a couple down wide around on the outside. Get yourselves up, get yourselves sorted out, and do it rather quickly. And oh goodness me, it's not a place you want to be on the deck. Matteo Trentin for Ethics Quickstep found himself there. The wisdom of Andre Greipel showing itself. It's writ large right now, and this is Sepp van Mark's boys as well, in the waspish yellow and black coming to the fore. Geraint Thomas is there, he's got Stella with him as well, and they're starting to grind into the climb. Also Paolini's here. This was a piece of insurance by Greipel. He wanted a goodly distance because he didn't want to basically go backwards within the pack. He's going to get caught on this climb because this is not his thing. That was a great piece of wisdom by him, and Paolini's looking strong as well. His ginger beard writ large within this front group of 10. It's a grind, Sean, it's designed to be, and it's come very late in this race this time.
Well, it's always a grind when you get to this point in the race with the steepness of the climb, cobblestones, everybody, and so for some it's a little bit easier if you're really good, but for the ones that are starting to suffer, it's a big grind.
Sagan just drifts by. There is Christophe as well. Side by side, Sagan and Christophe. They'll be amongst the favourites late on if this does go to be one for the quick men. And Ladagneau, the latest casualty for Flanders Ew. Remind you that Sébastien Chavanel is out after being hit by his own car that was poleaxed by a neutral service car earlier on. Wow. So much going on, and John Degenkolb is not in a great place, and there you are. Once you lose momentum, Sean, it's very difficult to pick it up, and Andre Greipel has been caught, but right at the very top. Job well done by him, I think, to deal with that.
Yes, I think tactically he did it very well, because you know, he could have been difficulty staying with the big favourites, so now we can see, you know, he's going to be just swallowed up by Geraint Thomas and a lot of the other real favourites of this race, and he's in a real good position now.
Not having to clip out when you have a camera bike as well within the mix. Also getting very much involved and just trying to stay safe at least. Oh, indeed, look, Ryder's already carrying. That may well be a damaged bike, but to be honest, you're often almost quicker to go like this than elsewhere, but rather like a paper boy with his knapsack, it can swing around all over the place, and you don't want to take anybody else's race out in so doing. Matteo Trentin deciding to ride it up, others carrying. It's been a long day so far, only 44 kilometers. They've already done 220k in testing terrain. The only blessing has been the weather. They've had just about everything else that could possibly be thrown at a professional cyclist today. Some of it good, some of it bad. But nonetheless, it's made it fascinating. It's always how you cope, Sean, isn't it?
Well, yes, it's always how you cope, and sometimes, you know, some days you can cope so well, depending how you're feeling coming into the race, and then you have some idea what way you can cope, and you know, but it doesn't work always in that way. You can, you know, be real good in the previous race and suddenly on the day you're not great, and vice versa. We could see today, you know, some of the riders who were expecting the big favourites not riding as well in the last number of weeks. We could see them, you know, really being that much better, maybe 2 or 3, 5% better today.
Maribor-Straat is coming up, and that will be a pavé section. This is that crash that happened just on the turn in, and in fact it was just a lone rider, possibly a puncture, that took others out. Big compression point as well, so they've sort of widened the approach to that to help people to funnel in, but it did nothing more than just concentrate the angst, I'm afraid, and this crash did not help at all. The lucky got through, Sean.
Yes, well, that's what you need. You need just a little bit of luck, and that was, you know, very close to the front of the that group. And depending on where you are, what line you're taking, if you're taking, you know, the outer line, well, then the riders that were there, you know, the ones who were just behind the rider that slided out, there was no way through, and down you go.
Wow, take a breath time. We're going to take our last commercial break. They're coming to a pavé section. It's not a climb, it's the Maribor-Straat, so it'll be wearing, however, because it's reasonably long. Then we will be climbing again the Steen Big Dries, and then it is the run-in, 2 smaller climbs before we get again to the Haut de Clermont and the Paterberg yet again. You heard that right. Back in a moment. Peter Sagan is up towards the pointy end. Let everybody else be afraid. Well, we used to say that a lot, but we've started to have a little bit of a lack of certainty as far as Peter Sagan is concerned. He takes on his drinks bottle, takes it cleanly. Looks like he's breaking some kind of seal, which he's not happy with. Oh no, it was a gel that was, beg your pardon, was taped to the bottle. Handy way of delivering a little bit of extra. Just going to welcome back our British friends, and then we'll all be together for the remainder of this race. What a day. That Russian champion? It's going again. Andre Greipel is in a naughty mood at the moment. He's teasing us. He's just headed off once again. Peter Sagan sailed through the last of the feed zones, as you can see, because it's just too busy to take anything after this. You'll still be able to get hold of a bottle, but it's difficult to take. Sagan is up here, and we were just saying once he gets engaged, then everybody be worried. But, well, that's a phrase that we haven't used for a while. Andre Greipel just tagging on to Sylvain Chavanel here. And this is a diamond duo right now, but who's going to be minded to bridge over? There's a group of about 40 riders, as you can see. It does include many of the favourites just behind, including Geraint Thomas. And I guess it's Lutsenko who's at the head of the race, who's decided to squirrel off, and it's Chavanel and indeed Greipel that are trying to bridge over to him. Well, it's a long shot, I guess. Greipel's been in a playful mood today. Not that you'd want to play any kind of game with Andre Greipel, because you're liable to lose. There is Arnaud Démare, the French champion, and he's got all kinds of problems, and I think it might be a full bike change. It's gear issues, no puncture, so he's on somebody else's bike, and that's always an uncomfortable thing to take, Sean.
Yes, we could see there that he's just his chain got dropped. It seemed to get caught between the lower sprocket and the frame, and not being able to get it out, and always another bike, you know, not exactly the same setup, so it's not a good situation. But no choice here. You cannot wait for a car, because if you wait for the car here, it's plus 3 minutes behind. So he has to continue on one of his teammates' bikes.
He's riding William Bonnet, handing over, sacrificing himself to Arnaud Démare, the French champion. Meanwhile, Lutsenko it is that kicks off. Sadly for him, close at hand are these two. Sylvain Chavanel, he has to go long if he's going to get a chance today. Unfortunately for him, he's got a passenger, and it's Andre Greipel, and he's not the sort of man you want along for the ride.
Well, I don't think Greipel will hang in for that long, although you know, when he gets on the flatter sections, maybe Greipel will contribute a bit with Chavanel. And Chavanel, you know, experience, he knows this is the moment to try and get out of this group of big favourites.
At least he's got to shell it down and maybe just drag somebody else up who he feels he can beat, but he could use, maybe lean on a little bit. So we're on this, yet again, this long pavé section, and this is struggling Arnaud Démare, the back of the peloton, just getting back in, but he's on Bill Bonnet's bike. And so you see the number 61 on the bike, and the 64 upon his back, and of course the French tricolour as well. Good solid pavé section, this one of the smoother pavés. You can see how it's on some of the repaired areas, it varies just a little bit. One man we haven't seen too much of is Sepp Van Mark, but he is up towards the nose of this lot. That's Tom Liesert you're looking at right now, that Démare is just getting onto the back of. 38.3 kilometers to go, and the hurt rolls on, and it can only get worse before the end. A nightmare for many, an absolute dream for somebody, but we don't know who that is today. So, what's next? Well, looking at the pack right now, and they make another little turn. They come thick and fast right now. The Steenbig Dries is 700 meters long, 5.3% and 6.7 as a maximum, so nothing too testy. The Tyenberg will come with in about 2 kilometers time. A little bit less than that, in fact, when it says 36.8. And that maxes out at 15.8%. It's 500 meters of cobbles, and it's a launch pad. And Tom Boden's had some fun there in the past, but I think that Sylvain Chavanel wants to race to that, because he believes if he can just hold on and get a decent gap when he gets to that point, then you may well see he kicks on. We speculate because nothing is known today. Unusually, Sean, it's normally bad weather that throws a spanner into the mix, but today we've drawn so many more riders into contention because of the good weather, and that's the reason why we can't call it just yet.
Yes, well, we have a lot of riders here, as you can see. You know, at this point, with just 38 kilometers to go, normally the group would be much smaller, maybe, you know, 20 riders, 25 riders, but it's much greater than that. And it's all to ride for at the moment. We can see here on the front, it's Degenkolb's team of Giant who is, you know, taking control. Anybody in here now that is feeling good, got over the last couple of climbs without too much difficulty, they're going to say, well, I can get into the final of this one. And we can see Chavanel is the one who, you know, decided to go away, but unfortunately there's always teams riding. We can see he's not allowed to pull out any advantage at all.
So they make the turn off the pavé, swinging wide, trying to stay as safe as possible. And Sepp Van Mark is in here. Now, he's not bad in a sprint-up situation at the end of a very, very long day. He's a trackman himself, Sepp Van Mark, don't forget. And he came into today as one of the out-and-out favourites. Degenkolb Degenkolb not so. He was about 12 to 1 at the top of the day with the best odds you could have got. But right now, Degenkolb's looking very handy. He's got two teammates in front of him as they just eat up Chavanel and indeed Greipel as Lutsenko kicks off again and engages the cobbles of the Steenbeck threes on his own. The Tyenberg is what they are on now, I beg your pardon, and here it is, 15.8 is the max, 6.6. This is only 500 meters, but it's a whole world of hurt as Leukemans decides to try and impose himself as well. There's a lot here starting to shine, and is that Van Baal that's in the mix here for Team Cannondale-Garmin, the young man, third in the Dwarsdorps de Vlaanderen. This is fantastic. Well, maybe it takes a bit of young spirit on a day like this. 37.2 kilometers out. What have they got? A lot of hurt right now is the answer, just for now.
Well, certainly a lot of hurt for a lot of people, as we can see here. This one again, the Tyenberg, it's a difficult one. You know, the cobbles are not majorly difficult, but with the percentage at this point in the race, everybody is starting to suffer, and it's only the strongest, the fittest will survive from here on out.
Lutsenko still taps out of rhythm. It looks like his cadence is a lot better than just about anybody out there. There's Tom Leeser at the back, and this really is the shell-out zone, as you can see. That was Tyler Farrar, by the way, just starting to suffer. There is Geraint Thomas, and this is a very, very selective group we've got right now with 36.9 to go. John Degenkolb over towards the barriers just shows his nose as Lutsenko gets clear and onto the little bit of respite where his thighs will be absolutely stinging right now. Trying to shake out the lactose, and just takes a bottle and just thinks job well done just for now. But there is more work to be done here, Sean.
And as Van Avermaet here puts in a big attack, and we can see Lutsenko out front. He's doing a great job, riding very, very strong. But Van Avermaet also at one hole needs to go from a bit further out, as we can see here with a Skyrider. Yes, with a Skyrider almost coming down.
Yeah, everyone with the same idea, and one of those flags just dropped in front. It was almost like a go flag, albeit yellow, for Greg Van Avermaet. He's gone, but look who he's dragging with him. I think that's Stijn de Volder that's also involved for Trek Factory Racing. Well, who's been left out? Well, I think that was Dylan Van Baal of Cannondale-Garmin, who showed a bit of willing, and Chavanel decides to try and pick up. One of the Borough boys is also involved here, and Van Baal is leading a chasing pack of talent and doesn't want to be lent on at the moment, so drifts to the side of the road, and everyone's saying, come on, do something. I'm not doing it all by myself. Don't get on my wheel. Don't mess around with me. There's going to be a lot of messing around, Sean, at the end here.
Well, yes, there is a lot of looking there, but still they're racing very aggressive. We can see a lot of riders having difficulty following.
Alexander Kristoff is bridging over. He doesn't want to be left out. Degenkolb just starting to suffer a little bit and trying to find little areas where he can possibly just hide and regather himself. Meanwhile, the push on continues, and Geraint Thomas is in a great place. Stijn de Volder looms large with a clear piece of road on the right-hand side, and Andre Greipel just sails by him right now. Goodness me, 35.8 kilometers to go. It's intense, Sean.
Yes, it's real fast racing at the moment, and at this point you can see that you know, the gap's only maybe 30-40 meters, but for the riders to close them down, it's becoming a big fight, and you know, they're just slowly crawling their way across. And we can see now in the front group we have maybe 18-20 riders at the moment, and other riders are just trying to make it across to them.
Desperately so. Oh, and this is a big roll now. That's Nicky Terpstra, who's been caught in the wrong place by the looks of things, and suddenly he realizes a little alarm bell goes off. He's got riders who are similar to him in terms of their capabilities, and they're up the road, and Peter Sagan's in this gang as well. So he's got to get there, and he's dragging others along with him, including Dylan Van Baal from that little selective group. 34.9 to go. It's clicking down. Closer and closer to glory for somebody.
The Kruisberg is also very hard because the cobblestones are really bad. It's a strange climb because it doesn't really have the name of Koppenberg or Paterberg or Quaremont. It's something most the tourists, the guys that go there to ride the bike, they know this climb, but most other people, they don't really know it. It's also a climb that, yeah, it's only become famous now because now you do it more in the final. But it's really hard, and it's a climb. You arrive there and you want to get over it as fast as possible, just to get rid of it. Steep, very bad cobblestones. You don't see the top. It's in a corner, left corner. Then you arrive on the top, and it's still uphill. You arrive from the end of the cobblestones, you go right, and then it stays going uphill. So for another 400 or 500 meters. So there's no recovery. And the hardest part is when you get on over the cobblestones. Big gear straight away, boom, and that's when they go. And that's the part that really kills you.
There we are, the part that really kills you. Any one of these climbs today would have taken out most club riders. These guys have just taken so much hurt today. Jack Bauer also involved for Team Cannondale-Garmin. I think Dylan van Baal still within the pack. 33.7 kilometers left of today's race. They've done 230. It's unbelievable the amount of hurt that these guys are capable of taking. I'm just full of admiration for them, Sean. It's been a fascinating day, and it's not over by a long chalk, this.
No, not over at all. With just 33.3 kilometers to go, we can see, still riders want to go in the attack. Van Avermaet is being aggressive in the last number of kilometers. He knows that if he stays around with the better sprint as well, then in the actuals, if it comes down to a sprint, he's not going to make a great performance here. We can see Astana as well. They are attacking. We see their last boom very much on the front, so he's still in there. We see also from Lothar Sudal, Jürgen Rolands, which is very much to the front, but with Sky they have two men in there. We can see Luke Rowe and of course Geraint Thomas are very much to the front, but they are being looked at there, and I think a lot of the riders are saying, well, leave Sky, leave Luke Rowe, chase down these breakaways.
It's Oliveira, by the way, the Portuguese champion of Lampre Marina, that's just on the front with 32.7 kilometers to go in front of this trio. But this now feels very much like the selection, does it not? Behind we have a group of about 25 riders by my reckoning, possibly a little bit less than that. But what talent they've got on board. They've got a chance, Sean, of making this stick in terms of that being the select group. If they start looking at each other, though, they'll welcome others to the party.
Well, I think what we have on our screen at the moment are three leaders out in front, and that chasing group of big favourites. It looks like that's where the winner is going to come from. Haven't seen any pictures from just off the rear of this group of big favourites, but it's going to be difficult if you're already in difficulty getting dropped. We can see the cars are in between already, so it looks like a winner is going to come from possibly this three-man breakaway. Van Avermaet in a really good position, but again we can see Sky are the ones who are securing the pace back in the main peloton.
Lutsenko, Avermaet and Oliveira being chased down by these guys. It's easy to be lent on a day such as this. Andre Greipel, open-mouthed, very rarely looks like that, except when he's in a full-on sprint situation. Stein de Volder is in this gang. Geraint Thomas is here as well. We've talked about Greg Van Avermaet. I think Marcus Burghardt and Daniel Oss are also here. So they've got lots of different cards to play. I wouldn't be surprised if Daniel Oss turns out to be the chosen man for Lotto today. For BMC, I beg your pardon. We'll see. Greg Van Avermaet up the road. 31.3 kilometres. And not that far enough to make a difference. And it's Lotto that are doing the chase down right now, and it's coming once again from Andre Greipel. He's really sacrificed himself today. He did get back in. There's Stibar as well. So Stibar, the Czech champion. You see the white, red and blue. You see Edix Quickstep also represented here. Nicky Terpstra has made it back over. It was a good move by him to put that fire out, Sean. He's been playing the fireman. Tell you who's been reasonably quiet is Peter Sagan today.
Well, I think there's a lot of riders in here who have been pretty quiet up to this moment, but there's a lot of time still to get aggressive, and with the terrain we have out there, if you're feeling good, if you're on your best form, well, then you can cause a lot of problems in the climbs to come.
Henrik Hausler's also up here. I heard some of you squealing from I Am Cycling. I'm looking at this group right now. Degenkolb is there. I was just about to declare him absent, but he is there. So is Alexander Kristoff. So we've got Degenkolb, we've got Kristoff, we've got Terpstra, we've got, do you know what, we've got just about everybody that you would have picked at the top of the day, Sean. This is fantastic.
Well, looking at that, the composition of that chasing group, a lot of the big favourites in there. I can't pick out anybody who you would be put on the top list of favourites this morning, but there's still a very big group of riders here. There is what 25 to 30 riders in this group all the time with 29.90.
Wow. So gather yourselves. We're going to try. Andrei Grifko's here, by the way, for Astana as well. In fact, I think they've got 3 personnel within this group. Let's well, when the camera settles, we'll have a look. 30 kilometers remaining. So once we deal with the Tyenberg, we then now that that's been dealt with, I should say, through the Kruseberg, as we've already mentioned, well, then we have the Kvermont and the Paterberg still to be dealt with. The first time of asking for the Eau de Kvermont was kind of here's what you're going to have to deal with on 3 occasions. They've got to get through it once more, Sean, but then they've got the Paterberg, which is going to be a real punishment. I can't see this group coming in en masse at all. They're going to start attacking each other, and there's teammates here who can be used, and they will be. Perfect example, Sean, of how you lean on your teammates at moments such as this and just hope that they can provide you with something. We're on the Kruseberg, the Hotond, 9% maximum, but a short one.
Yes, well, it's a difficult one at this point. You know, the cobblestones are not in the best of shape, and we can see, you know, the Portuguese rider Nelson Oliveira, you know, going for it here, taking his chance, and you know, it's what they've got to do. But to get out of this one, another rider we can see here with a chain problem, Lukemans, of course, he's been very active in the last number of kilometres.
Yeah, terrible time for this to happen, because he's got to get up here, and really he's kind of, well, not only off the pace, but just has to recadence himself essentially for the attack. There is Oliveira, and he's working, I believe, for Pippo Pozzato. I think he's still within this group. 28.7. Fighting, and Andrei Greipel just backing out. There's Marco Mercato getting back in here, and Greipel looks like he really is suffering, but he's not the only one. And they're starting to bob on the climb. Who looks freshest? Well, nobody looks fresh. Everyone's got some kind of deficit. It's about how much of your reserves you've already used, I guess. And frankly, I think that Andrei Greipel has just about used all of his, and he's got still, don't forget, the Eau de Kvermont and the Paterberg still to come, and that's going to hurt. We know that. Big checks over shoulders, and you know, if you're starting to pose an attack at a moment such as this, it's a hard thing to deliver, Sean.
Well, it's difficult to attack on the cobbles, but again, if you had that little bit of power more, you can just pull out the advantage slowly. We can see here, you know, everybody is fighting to get to the top. We can see Luke Rowe here sitting on the rear end. He's doing a great job working for Geraint Thomas, because he secured, you know, the tempo on the front of the bunch, and he's going to just get over this one again. And still nobody, you know, powerful enough to split this group anyway majorly.
Nobody. I certainly think that had it rained today, we would have had a different story. We've got some great strong men who are very much part of this. Peter Sagan, can he really shake the monkey off his back? Well, the gorilla's gone, because Andrei Greipel has faded on this climb. He may well be able to regather himself, but it's a tough ask. Oliveira is just constantly punching everybody at the moment. He clearly feels good. He was very good in Depana as well. Ethics quick step, marshalling, just bridging over to him. And Alexander Kristoff, a man who's been on stunning form. Well, don't bet against him, Sean, on a day such as this, as a motorcycle cuts between a gap. And it's a constant battle. Not only that, but even I don't think they can even they haven't even got time to take a bottle at a moment such as that. The pace they've got right now, even coming off these cobbled sections, the next one is announced so quickly, and there's so much shaking down. I think that's Sepp van Marker's been distanced here on that last climb. That's not good, Sean. There's a lot of climbing still to come here.
Yes, is he being distanced, or is he going? Yes, that's not a good situation to be in if you're being distanced at this time, although there is a bit of a section now before we get to the outer Quartermount again. You know, there's about 8 or 9 kilometres, and that's going to be an important part, because that group of big favourites, a very big group, there's somebody going to try and attack out of that one.
Most definitely. You've got others as well. I'm just looking back here. I'm hoping that Sepp van Marker hasn't pinged off the front. Our camera angle was rather confusing. We'll have a look at that in a moment. We certainly didn't see him on the climb. I believe he is suffering, but we may be proven wrong here. 27.4. There he is. He's backed out of it, Sean. He was suffering. Thank heaven for that. Sorry if I thought I'd misguided you. I hadn't. There he is then. A lot of work to get back on, Sean, and this is going to be a deficit when he gets to the next climbs, and they're coming.
Yes, well, you have to ask yourself the reason why was he not in this group of big favourites. If he had a mechanical problem, maybe we did not see it, okay, you know, you can't allow that. But if he was suffering on the last climb, the Kreuzberg, then it's really going to hit on the next climbs. As we can see out front, Nicky Terpstra starting to push on. Not surprising. Anybody with numbers here, Ethics Quickstep, you could read that tactic that they were going to try and use the men, because they have the manpower, and that's what they're doing at the moment.
Nicky Terpstra was always going to have to go long, especially in this kind of company. He's not going to be able to deal with the powerful men. Sepp van Marker is showing the power right now. It must have been a mechanical, Sean, because he's got a lot of energy left in him. Is he going to take a bottle? Can he possibly? Head goes down. He just wants to get back in. 26.8 kilometres remaining, and well, there's still climbing to be done. Don't forget, we've got the Oude Quermont and the Paterberg. He's got to be back in before that, Sean.
Yes, and he's not looking good here. Almost made it on just that little drag, but again, they upped it up front, and we can see there he's really suffering. Doesn't look like he's going to make it back into that big group of favourites.
No, it doesn't. It was a big breath that he took there as he got back in, and then tries to find something, almost turn the tap down, if you like. Meanwhile, opening it right up is Terpstra and Christoph. What a pairing this is. Well, Alexander Christoph is the man that Terpstra does not want with him, and he's going to have to beg him to help out. Christoph, I don't know. He looks like he's on the absolute limit right now. Terpstra just has to keep this spinning and hope that he can fatigue Christoph at a moment such as this. 26.1 to go. What's the response behind?
Well, we can see again, Luke Rowe has got to take it up and try and secure, you know, the pace setting for Geraint Thomas. And when we get to the next climb, Geraint Thomas has to attack. If the two out front, you know, gel well together, and we can see Christoph is actually, you know, starting to share the pace with the pacing on the front with Nicky Terpstra. So these two now, you know, if they can pull out an advantage, well then, when we get to the next climb, the Quartermount, the big favourites, if we have the two out in front, they have to go on the attack.
Well, the camera searching for them and finally finds them just at the back of these camera bikes, and they're all taking the pictures, and right now they could be writing headlines. Terpstra just goes to the front, tucking in behind him Alexander Christoph, runner-up in Milan-San Remo, don't forget. Degenkolb had the beating of him that day. Degenkolb looks a bit second-hand today, at least so far. André Greipel constantly refinding himself, but he's got the big challenge still to come. They're not panicking just for the time being. Saw Stein de Volder just drift out and have a look, as Denik Stibo has got no interest in chasing down, because his teammate Nicky Terpstra is up the road. Second in the Gent-Wevelgem, Nicky Terpstra. What can he do today? Well, he could win it, but it's going to take a supreme effort, and that's what he's showing right now, Sean.
Yes, well, he knows Terpstra, he has to get out of this group of big favourites. Unfortunately, he's with somebody who was much faster than himself in the sprint, so he's going to have to try and, you know, get rid of him, possibly on the final climb on the Patersberg, the final time up it. But again, we can see Greipel is securing the pace there. He has some teammates in that group.
He had a super race of Japan, Alexander Christoph, as you well saw. He was just unbeatable, save for the time trial. Meanwhile, these guys are trying to tap out a tempo to get back to him. Alexander Christoph is in a great place. Nicky Terpstra would prefer to have somebody else alongside him, I guess, but at least he's getting some help from Christoph. Christoph is not going to want to invest too much into the last push. Likewise, though, Ethics Quickstep are not having to do much of the work, so they're leaning on Sky, and of course, onto Lotto Soudal at the moment. Lotto Soudal with Jürgen Rollins in here. The French champion is in this group you're looking at right now. Well, it's time to ask themselves some questions, Sean, and I guess it's the first and foremost, who's going to stop these guys right now? The kilometers are clicking down, and these guys are capable of going over these next climbs. Was it a wise launch point is the big question. It's looking good.
Well, it's looking very good, and you know, they are working well out in front. We can see back in the chasing group, not too many riders want to secure the pace. I think it's only Sky and Lotto, and they only have, you know, 2 riders, so it's just 2 against 2, and these 2 men out front, Christoph and Terpstra, they seems to be very, very strong. Greipel is certainly, you know, almost at the end of his energies here. He's going to disappear very quickly when we come to the next climb.
There we are. Stibar is in this group. So is Bohm Lutsenko, who we saw was looking extremely lively. Van Avermaet will be disappointed. Likewise, Burkert. Danny Os, you've got to say so as well. Elmig is here. Puzzato, we said that Oliveira would be working for his team principal, as he is. Jens Kerkelaer, Degenkolb's in the mix as well. Some big names. Rowe, Thomas, Sagan. Well, there we are. Well, the young man who would have preferred a wet day, not part of it. Dylan van Baal just fading off the back of this group, I'm afraid. 22.1 kilometers remaining, 29 seconds. Sean, they're extending the gap, and I suggest that these guys, nobody really wants to take up the chase because partially they've 2 of the teams have got players up the road. Here we are. Katusha don't want to play this game. And likewise, neither do Ethics Quickstep. They're going to let these boys have their fun as far as those 2 teams are concerned. And the other teams are feeling, well, a little bit bullied, to be honest.
Well, I think it's Astana who have a number of riders in that chasing group of favourites. They have you know, taken it at the front now and going to push on. If you can hold it at that 30 seconds maximum, then you can, you know, rectify that on the next climbs. And I mean, Geraint Thomas and the other big favourites, if you're really feeling good. But if it grows out, you know, 40 seconds plus, then it can be a difficult one. But again, we can see there's still a lot of movement in that group of chasers, so it's going to hang around if they continue on working like that at the 30 seconds.
Well, it's gone from it's ebbed slowly, second by second, out to half a minute right now, and they've got to be very, very careful. Meanwhile, the camera just pans back, and that is Zep van Mark, ranked favourite at the top of the day. And Sean, I'm afraid it's not going to be his day by the looks of things.
No, well, we could see that quite a bit further back the road when he tried to make it across into the group of big favourites. He got very close on that little drag, and then immediately over the top, somebody up the pace, and it's so difficult, you know, to close it down on your own. And you know, the question is, if he was suffering already, if he got lost contact in the earlier climb, well, then that's normal. The question is, did he have a mechanical problem? It doesn't look like he had, because we would have seen it, as he's one of the big favourites, so not on a good day. So the Eau de Clermont is coming up for the 3rd time of asking, and the 2nd time over the Patersberg as well. These guys know it. 28 seconds now. Andre Greipel surely must be absolutely at the end of his reserves, but I guess you could say the same thing for just about everybody. Stein de Volder's here. I wonder if he's thinking about a podium place. You see his white shoulders just on the left-hand side of your screen to right-hand side of the road. They make this little technical around the factory zone as they start heading back and into town. It's the last time of asking for the Eau de Clermont. Some big questions will be asked, Sean, and not least, who's going to take on these guys? Doesn't seem like a lot. And on a normal day, 29 seconds with 19 kilometers to go, you wouldn't give a breakaway the candle. But right now, they've got a superb chance, and they're holding it because they are so talented. Peter Sagan within this group as well, and there's some shoulders as they start to fight for position. They want to have the best, cleanest approach right now. They know they don't want to get, even in a small bunch such as this, caught behind. No, a lot of movement we could see there. You know, riders, you know, leaning on each other, a lot of pushing, and it's not surprising because we're coming, you know, to the Eau de Clermont. It's going to be more than ever vital to be in a good position, and with the 2 two out front. Much the same as last year, we had a situation where there was two riders out front, then Cancellara went in the attack, and that's what Geraint Thomas, the other riders, Degan Culp, he's going to follow, of course, and he's going to try and stay with the big strong men. Jürgen Rolands, we can see there, Greipel is riding a lot for his team, so Rolands is certainly, you know, the one they're going to play. And we can see BMC, they still have a lot of riders there, at least 3 riders in this chasing group.
Degan Culp was called for help. He's gone up to the front. Stibar's not going to do anything for Ethics Quickstep. He's got Terpstra up the road. BMC, you saw their car speeding through the gap, trying to get up there. Meanwhile, these guys have got to get up what is approaching. Goodness me, Sean, they have had so much to deal with today. Right now, they've got to deal with each other.
Well, yes, it's all about, calculating your effort in the earlier part of the climb here, and when you're out in front you always try and, you know, leave the other rider do a little bit more pulling on the front. But we can see here back in peloton they're starting to up the pace, and I think this advantage will come down quickly.
Degan Culp has run out of assistance. He's now relying on Sky. He's leaning on them. Sagan likewise in the chasers. Meanwhile up front it's Christoph that's taken on this climb for the first time in the lead ahead of Nicky Terpstra. Nicky Terpstra starting to choke. Got to say that Christoph looks amazingly fresh after a busy day. And there's Andre Greipel. I think finally that is job done for Andre Greipel. He's done such a good job on behalf of his teammates from Lotto Soudal. Here we are then, the Eau de Quermont maxing at 11.6. No laughing matter, but wait till you come to the final climb of Asking, the Paterberg. That is absolutely no joke. So they've got to deal with this, and then it's very, very short order. It's only 3 kilometers later, don't forget, they'll take on the Paterberg, and then they can start thinking about the line, and suddenly they've attacked out of the nose of this lot. So who's going with it? Where's Stein de Volder? Where indeed is the challenge? Oliveira fading. There's Lutsenko. There is also Greipel. Job done for these guys. It's about who's got what up here. Oh, and it's Stibar that's coming through along with Geraint Thomas. Stibar's not going to help Thomas though. Stibar's got to make the bridge. He's got to repeat the feat. He's got to basically do a Cancellara right now. Cancellara resting up, watching this at home with broken vertebra. Must be screaming at the screen. But he's the man he's calling for. Well, who is it? It's probably Stein de Volder further back down the order. 17.7 kilometers, 16 seconds now, back to G2, and it is G in 2 at the moment. Group 2, that is. Oh, it's hard work, and you can see this is Nicky Terpstra. Suddenly he realizes what he's got to do. They'll be on the radio saying to him, just go for it, for goodness sake. Dig deep and impose it now.
Yes, and that's what he's doing, and we can see Geraint Thomas is the one who was really, you know, blown the chasing group apart. Only Stibar able to match or follow Geraint Thomas, and much the same situation as we had on in last year's race. 2 out front, and now we've got the chasers, and Stibar in a real good position because he's not going to contribute anything with Geraint Thomas with his teammate out front.
Well, psychologically this is going to be a huge anchor for Geraint Thomas. He's got to just put the blinkers on and go for it. He's done it before, Sean, with great success this season.
Yes, well, he's done it, and he has got the form, but he has, you know, to continue on. He cannot start looking around, and, you know, because Stibar is, you know, guaranteed he's not going to work. And also we can see Daniel Loss with Van Avermaet, they're also chasing, and they're not that far off. So yeah, you haven't the time to start playing about. You just have to, you know, keep on riding, and that's what Geraint Thomas has got to do here. And when you come to the final climb of the day, it's going to be a difficult one for Geraint Thomas if you have to ride all the way with a rider on your wheel.
There we are. It does have an impact. You've got no chance of exchanging, but apart from that, just psychologically, you know that you've got somebody who potentially can mug you later on, and it looks like he's had enough. The nutcase with the flag needs to get out of the road. There's riders rapidly approaching him, and he's becoming an unwanted part of this race. Sagan's here. He's made it over. Lutsenko is distant, but Sagan is here. Oh, this is fantastic. Digging deep as well. Pippo Pozzato. Sagan is a danger. Stibar won't want to see him here, and least of all G won't want to have that kind of company. Stein de Volder's also got back on. Van Avermaet and Daniel Loss are also here, and it's a quieter approach, and that gap out to the men up front is going to start expanding, Sean.
Yes, well, it's going to be a problem now because a lot of the big favourites back together again, and of course Ethics Quick Step, they have men there, and they are going to, just sit on the wheels, and that is always a difficult one. Who's going to do the riding then? We could see Lars Boom there from Astana. He's also, yeah, we can see the gap is growing out, and it looks like these guys are going to go on to the final climb of the day, the Patersberg, with a nice advantage.
Well, they're going to be on it in 2.8 kilometres, and everyone's looking at everybody else, and Geraint Thomas is not happy with the situation at all. Stibar stays on his wheel. He's not prepared to help out. Bohm thinking about imposing himself. Peter Sagan's also in the frame. Degenkolb's also up here. Some very, very quick men. Greg Van Avermaet in the red, number 21, is also very much installed. And Stein de Volder with his white shoulders as Stibar looks over that way to see who's there. There is Stein de Volder, the great man who's won this race on 2 occasions. He doesn't want to invest too much energy right now. Peter Sagan, who's had one of the quietest days of all, as de Volder says, come on, to Degenkolb, who really looks absolutely at the end of his resources. Everybody is surely, and a big dig goes off now, and it's like a little bomblet as they all respond.
Yes, Van Avermaet throwing in a big dig there, and he knows if you hang around too long here, advantage 26 seconds, 2 or 2 leaders, but we can see Quick Step, Stibar, marking him immediately there. They're just blocking really. He's not going to contribute anything, but up front, the advantage 25 seconds as we go closer to the Patersberg.
Terpstra versus Quick Step, versus Christoph, I beg your pardon. Hugely exciting stuff here, and this, not the least of it, the last big test. Can Terpstra impose himself on a man who's on supreme form, Alexander Christoph, in a situation such as this?
Well, it's difficult to see Terpstra matching Christoph in the sprint, and Christoph looks very, very powerful unless they can produce something on the final climb. If Terpstra can produce, a real strong performance up the Patersberg and get rid of Terpstra, because he's capable of time trialing to the finish. But again, it looks like that Christoph is on a real good day, considering he has been in the 3 days of the Pan of recent, looking real strong.
Absolutely amazing. Well, second in the Milan-San Remo, of course, to John Degenkolb, who's behind him. He won't want to be playing bridesmaid again. Camera bike comes through, at least gets clear that Still's camera should have been elsewhere. It's a long, sinuous road. You can get it wrong at any time. Let's just hope these guys at least take on the Patersberg cleanly, don't puncture. We'd like a clean fight between this pair, and then see whether anyone else can join the fun. That's John Degenkolb, will probably be regathering himself and his resources at a moment such as this. This is a kindly link, Sean, but it's about to get very rude, isn't it?
Well, yes, this final one is, of major importance. The Patersberg, just to get up it, and we could have riders, getting into difficulty, not being able to make it. So again, you have to try and, not be on the front, but as you get to the right-hand turn where our two leaders are coming to the moment, to be in the top 3 or 4, that would be the perfect position in the chasing group.
So they sail in, and they're on the cobbles for the very, very, very last time. It's a clean run after this. Now Terpstra's got no choice. I don't think he can take this on. I think it's going to have to be runners-up spot for him today, but we're going to find out. 20.3. It's his launch pad. It's his last chance for glory, because the form that Alexander Christoph is on right now, and yet again the confetti comes on these guys. Somebody, unfortunately, is going to be a bridesmaid today, and I fear it may well be Nicky Terpstra, the way things are panning out. 29 seconds. It's a closing gap because they're motivated behind, and finally BMC offer up some kind of support, if that's what it is. Stein de Volder looks like he's starting to suffer, the veteran, at the back of this grouping. 13.5 to go. It's a hard man's game, this.
Yes, it is. It's all about, the real hard men to survive here. We can see Terpstra, he's fighting to stay in the wheel of Christoph, and also back in that chasing group. We can see Daniel Loss from BMC really pushing on the pace, and I'll not be surprised if we can see Van Avermaet trying to come across here, because this is the, the final opportunity.
Stibar's in there as well, and this is where he's going to try and go for it. He's just picked it up, and Terpstra's kicking off. The crowd have got big screens here. They know what's going on. Oh, look at this. What a grind that is.
Yes, by Van Avermaet, he's just, grinding away from Stibar. Geraint Thomas, just taking it up here. Degenkolb also just clinging on in there, but Van Avermaet is the one who is making inroads to our two leaders.
He is. Van Avermaet's gone, and Sagan's trying to follow him, and G can't pick it up. Degenkolb's also in the frame within that group, but it's going to be minor placings, I'm afraid, for him by the looks of things, unless he can get a big recovery, and they're going to come to the crest of this. It's not that far, but it's a whole world of hurt, and even the great Stein de Volder there is also suffering. What a fantastic push this is. 20 seconds is what Terpstra and Christoph have got, and they're away, but Sagan has made it over, and not only that, he's in great company. He's got Greg Van Avermaet. They've got to work together here, Sean.
Yes, well, he's got to work with Van Avermaet and try and make it across. The interesting one now is with the two out front, with still 20 seconds on an advantage. Nicky Terpstra and Christoph. Will Terpstra start playing the game? Well, I have riders coming up from behind and make Christoph do all the riding in the final. And in that case, we should see the two chasers here, Van Avermaet and Sagan, joining up. But 16 seconds, unless they pull well together, they're not going to make it across easily.
12.6 to go, that's all. Terpstra versus Christoph. I fear for Nicky Terpstra, and not least there should be alarm bells going, because there's a real talented duo behind. They've got to work together. They're now starting to exchange turns, which is a good thing. They've got to believe that they can bridge that gap, and they do. They're narrowing it, Sean, and 15 seconds is what it is right now. I think this is an alliance formed, which of course will be torn up later on, but they've got to work together now if they're going to keep their chances alive.
Well, there's the opportunity to get on the podium to win the race is there for our two chasers here. The two out front, they are working well together. Will that continue? I would ask myself the question, if you're a Nicky Terpstra and you're going to the finish with a Christoph who is super rapid in the sprint, I would expect Nicky Terpstra to start playing about in the final kilometres. And if that does happen, well, then we could see our two chasers, Van Avermaet and Sagan, joining up. But it's going to be a two-man battle against our two chasers.
17 seconds now. It's who's coped with the day best of all. Lars Bohm believes he's got an interest. Setting off in hot pursuit goes Zdeněk Stybar, the Czech champion. And Geraint Thomas tries and can't, and he comes back in to the group trying to rebuild himself. Stein de Volder is still here within this grouping. Likewise is Pippo Pozzato as well. Well, any of those guys would have taken this scenario, I guess, but maybe not the gaps. And here, still looking at each other. Christoph has a look into the eyes of Nicky Terpstra. Behind, it's Van Avermaet and Sagan. Sagan does not look overly comfortable, but nobody would do it a day like today. Have they got what it takes to bridge over? No, they're not pushing it. 18 seconds, it's expanded out front.
Well, they are pushing it, but our two leaders out front are proving to be the strongest. But again, we must not forget this chasing group, because they are not far off, as we can see them going to make it back to Van Avermaet and Sagan. So that will be an interesting one with Lotto Soudal. They have some riders here riding in the front. 18 seconds, our two leaders, they will have to continue on riding as they have been, but it's certainly not all over for anybody yet.
It's certainly not. It's not over even for Nicky Terpstra within this duo. These are the threat. 18 seconds, and isn't an expanding gap. It's a holding one for now, but the kilometres are clicking down and everyone is absolutely exhausted. There's also teams here who've got members up the road that aren't going to help out. So despite the fact this looks like a big chasing group, there are some that don't have to engage, Sean, and it's to their advantage.
Yes, well, certainly a big advantage if you have a teammate out front and you can sit on this group and just get carried along, and that is the case. We can see with BMC they have a man backing this group, because Van Avermaet is just out in front, and of course Ethics Quickstep, they were playing that game for quite a while, but we still have Stybar in this group.
9.6 kilometres to go. It's 18 seconds. It's clicking down very, very gently. What's Peter Sagan got? He's had a team that is in flux, I think it's fair to say. Jana Rees has been cast aside. There's been all kinds of criticism of his performance from the management. Peter Sagan would have loved victory today. He's sick of finishing second. It might be worse than that if he doesn't get himself up towards the front man. He's got to engage the help of Greg Van Avermaet. How much of a danger is he? Well, quite one, but I think Alexander Kristoff at the moment is red-hot favourite with a 16-second gap with 9.1 to go. Sean, we've dealt with the pavé. It's now about the run into town, and there's going to be a clear view of the hounds are going to see the hares before you know it.
Yes, well, they can all see each other, although for the chasing group, the bigger group there, our two leaders are a bit further out, but certainly Sagan and Van Avermaet, you know, they're just hanging out in front of that chasing group of 8-9 riders.
It's an expanding gap by the looks of things back to the pack. No, just off camera, there it is. It's holding station about 6 seconds further back. These guys have got a 15 seconds advantage over Van Avermaet and Sagan. 8.6 to go. Wow, they won't be thinking about pain at the moment, because I think the adrenaline is probably just blanketing that. As far as the sprint finish is concerned, however, they will be thinking about strategy. What on earth can Nicky Terpstra do to win this, Sean?
Well, it's a difficult situation when you're with such a great sprinter. Even you know, if you just get a little bit of an easier ride in the final kilometre, and the advantage is going to be very important as we go into the final 3-4 kilometres. Our two leaders, if they have still that, you know, 27 seconds, 30 seconds advantage, well, then they can afford to play about a bit. I think Terpstra, he should try, you know, bluff it a bit and not want to ride in the final 2 kilometres and make Kristoff do all the riding. That way, he might have some chance of challenging him in the sprint.
There's lots of checking over shoulders to see where Degenkolb is, incidentally. These guys have got 10 seconds on the pack. It's Greg Van Avermaet, we remind you, crashed in the E3. Second here last year, would love to take the victory. I'm still not convinced that this gap can't be bridged, you know, especially if Nicky Terpstra sits on too much on Kristoff, because I think Kristoff would probably have the confidence to win the sprint in a quartet. And so maybe it would be in his interests not to do too much work. I guess Terpstra knows that fact. 16 seconds. Normally, 16 or 17 seconds would not be enough for a breakaway to hold off at this sort of distance. But the fact of the matter is, Sean, everyone is exhausted after a day like this. They're all in the same boat.
Yes, everybody is, you know, at the end of their energies, and we're a small group chasing. Okay, when you have a bigger group chasing, and, you know, they're preparing maybe for a sprinter in the team, but you know, the riders who have got teammates here, they're not going to do the riding. Lotto Soudal, they seem to have two riders, Rolands and Benoit, and you know, they're just following for the moment and waiting to see if this gap is going to come down.
It's all to do. Nicky Terpstra knows what glory feels like in the Paris-Roubaix. Runner-up in the Ghent-Wevelgem. What can he do this time by? Alexander Kristoff, absolute supreme performer in the Milan-San Remo. Lost out this time by, of course, to John Degenkolb. Well, these guys have tasted glory before, Sean. It just makes you more hungry for yet more, does it not? Well,
as they say, when you win a big one, a monument, it's a bit easier to win another one. Both of them have done that. Milan-San Remo winner Kristoff, Paris-Roubaix, Nicky Terpstra. But again, you know, you have to look at what a rider is capable of doing. And when you're with a rider like Kristoff, who is so rapid in the sprint, well, then you have to start thinking, what tactic can I use to try and beat this guy? It's all rocking and rolling behind, and Stein de Volder has picked a man to go with right now. It's Stibar sets off in hot pursuit. These guys are starting to look at each other. John Degenkolb looks like he's been found out today. It would all have to come back together in dramatic fashion if he was to make it. Jurgen Rollins is kind of tagging along for the ride. Will there be a Belgian on the podium? They've been waiting for a while. They don't like it, the Belgians. Greg Van Avermaet is their best chance, but right now it's a Dutchman and a Norwegian that look like they're going to share the spoils, and they've got 26 seconds.
In het wielrennen. Maar goed, we hebben hier wel te maken met de klassieker. En als Terpstra gelooft in zijn eigen kansen, waarom niet?
Ja, en eerlijk is
Van Avermaet and Sagan still trying to, you know, do their best, but I think yeah, they're not as strong as our two leaders.
Five kilometres to go at that next air bridge, which thankfully is fully inflated. One of these guys' chest is going to be fit to burst at the end. He won't care about that because it looks like one of this pair are going to win this year's Tour of Flanders, the biggest race on Belgian soil. Belgians, well, they're the best placed of them, I'm afraid, is at 26 seconds back, and 12 seconds further behind is a very highly motivated chasing group, and it doesn't look like it's going to be them. They haven't got the legs, Sean, by the looks of things, to close down on two highly motivated monument winners up front.
No, they haven't got the power to close it down. We can see there, they are struggling to, ease into the advantage. The only possibility is now that Nicky Terpstra start to not contribute up front with Christoph. I would see that, and we can see he's a little bit already. He's not taking as much of a term on the front or a pull on the front, and we can see Christoph is looking around, starting to get a bit nervous. And if they do that, well, then we could see our two chasers, Van Avermaet and Sagan, joining up here with these two.
Nicky Terpstra is looking beyond Christoph right now. Nicky Terpstra in the blue and black, the BMC of red and black here of Greg Van Avermaet, just tagging on to Slovakian champion Peter Sagan, and Christoph dismissively comes through as if to say, call that a turn, Sean? They're arguing already, maybe not, maybe in silence.
Yes, you can see that they're not working as well together as they were after the 4 kilometers after the Patersberg, and it's normal. I think Nicky Terpstra, if he gives it his 100%, if he gives share the pace setting and the pulling on the front as much as Christoph, well, then he has no chance at all. So he's going to try and leave the best sprinter do all the work, or do most of the work, and that way maybe he will have some chance to push him in the sprint.
Just passing the 4 kilometers to go mark. Greg Van Avermaet first, or third I should say, on the road in front of Peter Sagan. Meanwhile, Christoph comes through. Looks like he's happy, at least not as angry about taking a turn, Sean. I think he's accepted the situation.
Well, I'm not sure. I think Christoph is the one who's doing the majority of the pulling on the front. We can see here, he's going to be a long time on the front, and when it comes to the time of Terpstra, Christoph has to look around and he has to almost, beg him to come to the front. And if that continues, as we can see, 20 seconds at the moment, we're getting close to the finish. So it's time. It's getting good looking for Christoph if they continue on riding at this pace.
As I said, though, I think Christoph would be more confident in a quartet, facing up to Sagan and Greg Van Avermaet, but we're simply guessing as to how he's feeling at the end of what has been an incredibly busy day for everybody. But that gap is coming down. It was 29 seconds not that long ago, and Terpstra perhaps realizes he doesn't want to run his up spot. Nobody does. Christoph's experienced that in Milan-San Remo. Get Wevelgem, of course, for Terpstra likewise. So both of them determined to take another monument, but determination is one thing, and the ability to deliver is another. These guys, I feel sorry for Peter Sagan yet again. 17 seconds down, 2.7 to go. They have to suddenly accelerate almost explosively, the guys who are in the chasing group. 16 seconds though, Sean. It's starting to close this gap. It might be reasonably narrow at the end here.
Yes, well, we can see again Nicky Terpstra is just sitting on the wheel, not taking the front immediately when Christoph pulls over a little bit. We can see the hand signal there from Christoph, and that's what Terpstra is going to continue on doing, and this gap is going to continue falling. 16 seconds at the moment. We're getting inside the final 2.5 kilometers.
Lars Bohm is off the back of that chasing group, as you can see, which is the main body of favourites that have made it this far into the race. And here we go. This is Alexander Christoph. We're used to saying his name at the moment. He's been on supreme form, Sean. In Japan, he was quite simply outstanding, and that just shows you never count your chickens, for goodness sake. Stijn van den Berg on the deck.
Yes, I think a lot of riders on the limit, very, very tired. Just touch the rider in front of him. Degenkolb actually touched the wheel, and just smashes straight into the side of him. And yes, when you're at base, everybody is just on the limit, and your reflexes are very, very poor.
1.8 kilometers to go. Nicky Terpstra's got to try and mug Alexander Christoph and that is an extraordinarily difficult thing to do. There's not many around, Sean, at the moment, at the end of a day, who would favour being in this position that Nicky Terpstra finds himself in right now.
No, certainly not a good position for Terpstra to be in, but the end of a race, 260 plus kilometres, it's all about how much you have left in the end, and we've seen it in the past, you know, the better sprinters that you would expect, you know, to win the sprint comfortably, you know, get into difficulty, but has Terpstra got, you know, that much that he can challenge Christoph?
1,300 metres only, and this is the danger if they really do look at each other, even still right now, because if they start weaving across the road, none of them wanting to take it up with 600 metres to go. 15 seconds can be eaten up before you know it. It's already 14 seconds, and here we go. It's the Flamme Rouge. It's a straight road down to our commentary position. They come underneath it, and still no movement from them, and they're holding position. Christoph fully aware of the danger. It's only a jump that can save Nicky Terpstra in P2 at the moment, and Christoph's going to pick this up. I wonder if he's going to go early, Sean.
No, I don't think Christoph will go early. He will just, you know, continue right in the front. Nicky Terpstra is not going to take it up from here in, but he will try and go in the attack. Terpstra or Christoph just will keep on rolling, but we can see, you know, and the long lenses there, it looks like this group is coming up, so Christoph is going to have to continue pushing on.
He is going to have to continue pushing on, pick a point in the road as they head towards the 500 metre mark, and then do your own count back. They're all spreading around the road for minor positions right now. The flags are draped, they'll be on somebody's shoulders at the end of the day, but they're going to have to be broad in a situation such as this, because Greg van Avermaet is on their case. He's starting to close the gap here. Van Avermaet picks it up, still no movement from Nicky Terpstra. Cool as a cucumber is Alexander Christoph. He's not going yet, he's not going, but he's going to be tempted into action. He has to be. Terpstra's going to take him before you know it. Greg van Avermaet's closing the gap. Peter Sagan's got nowhere to go. Oh, and Terpstra tries to go for it right now. What's he got? He tries to take a little bit of draft. Christoph picks it up right now. It's going to be glory for the Norwegian. Oh, what a win that was. What an absolute amazing display of poise, power, demeanour, and indeed belief. He had them all, and now he's taken the big one here in Belgium. What a performance that was. What a performance that was. You'd be hard pushed to find a tough, hard man, and this man is granite hard in a situation such as this. Alexander Christoph delivers again.
Yes, well, what a performance, you know, to be just there